Virginia buttonweed.
Named after Virginia, who was an early botanist with her husband Paul.
Who made buttons. Well, I got into wildflowers when Dr. Carlisle Lure's book came out in 1972 on the native orchids of Florida, and so I just became this possessed botanist running around trying to find these 102 orchids that were in Florida. And I kept walking through these fields of other wildflowers wondering what they were too, and it sort of migrated from there. I had a good mother that just let me run free in the woods, and I didn't really care much about knowing the names of things back then so much, but as I got out of the Army and started working in the Parks Department and trying to track down Florida's native orchids, the purpose of knowing what I was looking at became a little bit more intense. So I was just kind of inquisitive about what's out there.
Absolute earliest things I remember have to do with being outside and picking blackberries or puttering around a garden. I don't know. I've always been interested in gardening more than just the plants themselves. When I came to Florida, it was just so different than any place I'd ever been to before and interesting to me. And as a wildlife biologist, you don't understand why animals live where they do unless you understand their habitat, and their habitat is plants. And so I really started getting into plants when I moved here more so that I could understand what made Florida unique, how I could teach people how to make their landscapes at home better for birds and butterflies and all the rest of those kinds of things, and to be able to explain the state in a way that people would appreciate it. Because this is one of the coolest places in the country.
This would be a good spot because there's a lot of interesting habitat and wildflowers and beautiful vista.
So welcome. I hope you enjoyed the view on the way here. It's a really unique Florida view. The state acquired this property specifically for this dry prairie landscape. So this is an ecosystem that's found only in Florida. So we are one of the most diverse plant ecosystems in North America. And the reason why it's called dry prairie, I like to joke around and say that when it's not wet, it's dry. But for 2 to 4 or more months of the year, this is an inundated ecosystem. The water table's out of the ground. There's actually sheet flow. We are the headwaters of the Everglades.
You are in a unique system because we really are walking in Florida's real grassland. When you're standing here, you realize that most of these grasses are the same things that grow in the Tallgrass Prairie National Park in Nebraska. This is a beautiful time to be here. In the spring would be a totally different time, would still be beautiful, but with the fire regime, we got things that are a little late because they were burned a little later than normal. So that's going to change some of the blooming season.
This one has a good common name. It's Helianthus angustifolius. And Helianthus literally means sunflower in Greek, and angustifolius is referring to these narrow leaves. You can see the disc flowers here in the center disc. And then these are ray petals or ray flowers. So that's a composite of a whole lot of flowers put together to make a sunflower.
And the whole beauty of all this is just seeing these little ecotonal differences. We're slightly higher and all of a sudden we've got all these things growing. Just that 1 inch, half an inch changes everything. You notice this blazing star when Roger talked about near endemics. It's only found in the bottom 3rd counties of Florida, our only semi-tropical blazing star.
All the blazing stars start opening at the top and work their way down for some odd reason. So these are the new flowers up here, and these are unopened buds down here.
You know this plant?
This is that Carphephorus paniculata. I think paniculata, I'm not sure. I think it might be.
Oh, it is.
See the little tiny bug on the top?
It hardly gets any prettier than right through here. And of course, we've been walking through the woods. Everybody knows that, right? All this oak. If you're not familiar with this dwarf live oak, I mean, this has been burned back, but 90%, I don't know the exact number, don't hold me to it, is underneath the ground. You know, his main biomass is below ground, so it resprouts quickly. You'll notice there's a lot of little carnivorous plants in here. There's a lot of sundews we can see when we start walking around. We're in those kind of soils where it's wet, difficult to get all your nutrients. It helps to supplement it by eating some red meat once in a while.
What is this plant with the white button top?
Giant hat pins is the common name.
Yeah, it's kind of different when you know plants very well and know the names of things, whether it's common name or botanical names, and it gives you a different feeling when you're walking around out in the woods, it's almost like seeing old friends. Fire of just knowing what's out there is, maybe it just comes from being a native Floridian and caring about the wild Florida is probably it more than anything.
I want them to experience the prairie and come away with a sense of how magical and amazing this place is, because there is no place like this anywhere else, anywhere close to here, and certainly not in Florida. And what I want them to do is come back again, because we've peaked in excitement and interest level in there. They're going to want to come back and explore this on their own and relearn the names that they're going to forget.
It's really beautiful here. I mean, there's so much diversity, and even though everything isn't blooming right now, you can see how many different species there are.
And the thing I love the most is watching the interactions between the plants and the animals. Grass as high as an elephant's eye. There's also the saw palmetto. But they'll say, oh, saw palmetto, that big thing we have in our backyard. No, actually as low as, lower than your knee. And how it's important to preserve it, because, it's almost all gone. And of these kind of ecosystems, we wouldn't see the diversity of birds and other species that we like to see so much.
The more I teach botany, the more I come to appreciate how fascinating they are, because they can't move. I mean, they sprout, and that's where they have to live the rest of their life. They don't get to pick up and go somewhere when life treats them wrong. And so everything an animal has to do, a plant has to do too. It has to find a mate, it has to leave offspring behind, it has to earn a living, it has to do all the things that animals do, but it has to do it wherever it's sprouted, and they're complicated. People come at wildflowers sometimes just because they're beautiful. And I did. And I think wildflowers are beautiful, and I appreciate them for that. But I think what really draws me to plants more than that is the fact that under that superficial beauty, there is this complexity that you just don't really see, but you have to appreciate once you understand it and really look deeper. And I like puzzles where you have to look below the surface a little bit. And plants do that, I think, even more than animals.
There's a young couple that just started gardening recently, and she was looking to cook supper, and she said, "Where are the carrots?" And her husband says, "I planted them." And she was like going, "They're already carrots." I don't know what he was expecting.
Oh, that's funny.
He thought she brought them home to plant, so he went out and planted the carrots.